Hello everyone, welcome to 3ddesignacademy.com. In this lesson, we'll continue with part 10 of the Mercedes-Benz E-Class Coupe project. Okay, so continuing on from the previous lesson, I am going to be working on the body side a little bit, and there's an area that I want to fix, which is the highlight of this car. So if you see this image over here, you'll see that this is actually diving down like this. Now, in order to do that, I think I need to rotate the surface a little bit. So I'm going to do that right now. In order to do that, I'm actually going to delete these surfaces over here. I think at least I have some good idea of how big they're supposed to be. So let's just get rid of those. These curves, I'm also going to delete because, well, I think they need a little bit of cleanup. So let's get rid of those. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the surface so that I can get this highlight to work. Okay, so let's grab the curve. Let's see, I wonder. Okay, so it looks like this is the one that I'm going to be using. Right now, the surface is based on freeform blend. So let's go highlight on selected, and right now the highlight looks like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to untrim, and I'm going to see if I can just flatten this, because I feel like it's, well, actually the curve looks pretty flat down here. Yeah, that looks pretty flat. I think it's just the difference between the volume at the top and volume at the bottom that's creating this. Well, okay, well, that doesn't really matter. Okay, so what I'm really looking to do is make sure that this highlight that dives down towards the rear. So let's see if I can just pull this out a little bit. Yep, looks like that's the one. And I'm actually I might give it a little volume back, because I think it might be a little bit too much. So I think it might be a little bit too soft. I think the dive down on either ends might be a little bit too much. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just pulling this CV at the center out. Okay, and I'm just going to pull this out a little bit more so that the highlight dives down towards the rear. There we go. That's much better. That is actually following the shape that you see right here. Now, the only problem is that when I do that, that is going to reduce the amount of crown that's there. Okay, so there are a few things I can do. So let's explore some options. First of all, I do think that I need to probably just push this a little bit more inboard. So I'm going to start with that. So I'm just going to push the whole thing inboard like this. And another thing that I'm going to do is, okay, so that looks pretty good. And well, the problem is right now, this is supposed to have a little deeper section, but the problem is if I pull this outward like this, this is not going to give you a deep section like this. So I think what I need to do is I actually think I need to pull this out as well. So I'm going to change this into a degree 3 surface like this, and I'm going to pull this out as well. Notice I'm only pulling this out because this, well, basically this has to be a gradual transition from, I guess, a narrow to wide. So I'm just going to pull this out like this. And this one, on the other hand, that needs to be updated as well. So I'm just going to untrim this surface over here. Looks like it's going to be a full exercise in body highlight. So I think everything needs to be updated, but, well, it's what's necessary. So let's go ahead and do that. You always want to make sure that you create a very good surface instead of skipping corners. So let's go ahead, or cutting corners, I should say. So untrim that, and I'm just going to align the surface over here like this, and I am going to have XRC rows on, blending on. Okay, as far as the highlight goes, I don't think it's too bad. Still has a nice gesture. However, by pulling this out, I can create more section over here. Okay, so let's take a look. Highlights diving down. I still have a little more section here, so that's not bad. And I'm going to, well, I'm actually going to delete this one, and I'm going to see if I can just do a freeform blend from here to here. And for this section, I'm going to just say connect ends. And let's go ahead and turn on modify range. Modify perimeter. Okay, so it looks like I have to build it first before I can do modify range. Okay, so I'm just going to connect it over here. It's going to be, side 1 is going to be curvature, side 2 is going to be position. Let's just take a look. Okay, highlights, it's not to be honest, it's not that great. I think, in fact, it might be sticking out a little bit too much. So I think I might have to just move the whole thing. I'm just going to make sure that I'm grabbing the right curve. That's not it. I'm going to grab this one. And I think it needs to go in a little bit more. So let's push it out just a little bit more so that we have a little bit more section to work with. Okay, I mean, it's still diving down, so that's good. However, this is a little bit better over here. Now, this could be due to also the angle. So if I were to do this, I think that might improve the highlight a little bit. We'll have to see. Okay, but at least we're getting this section, and looks like the highlight over here is still not bad, not that bad. However, I am going to push this on a little bit. So I'm going to grab this section and grab this CV over here, and I'm just going to push it a little bit inboard like this. I'm just going to make sure that it doesn't have a too dramatic effect on this one. Okay, so everything still looks good. And let's go ahead and align this one back. So I'm just going to trim this surface over here, and I'm just going to align this piece over here like this, and it's going to be G2. I'm going to say partial, and looks pretty good. Okay. Yeah, the highlight still looks pretty good over there, at least at the bottom. Let's just check a few images. Yep, that's still looking pretty good. Okay, but at least this one is diving down, so I'm pretty happy with that. I guess it's, I would like to make this a little bit deeper, but in order to do that, I would have to transition this one as well. Let's take a look at this one. So I'm just going to untrim this surface over here, and I'm going to align it right here to the surface, and I'm just going to, it's going to be G2. Highlight is actually pretty good, but I'm a little bit concerned about the depth of transition. So another thing that I can potentially do is change this surface over here, but I don't know if I really want to go that way. Okay, so let's take a look. First of all, let me just make this default instead of going all the way to the front. I mean, the section looks pretty nice. It is a little bit deeper here. However, I might just want to pull it out just a little bit more like this. And now, okay, so we got pretty good section over here. I think I really want to pull this out a little bit. The problem is if I do that, it's going to, well, basically change the direction of the highlight. That's the only problem. So one other thing that I can do is I can try to play with this area a little bit. So what I would need to do is pull this out a little bit and push this in, which is the, well, basically I'm doing the opposite on the top. So that should give us a similar result. So let's see if I can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a stretch tool, snap. Well, okay, so I'm just going to pull this out. And that should have also a, let's see, I'm going to just pull it out a little bit. Yeah, that's going to help help the surface dive down a little bit, like that. Just going to do a little bit. And this side, I'm going to push it in a little bit. Well, first of all, let me just delete actually, let's just delete the construction history because I still do need the curve. Okay, so by pushing it inboard, that should, well, because I'm doing the opposite of doing pulling this edge out, that should help with the section a little bit, and that should help the surface dive down a little bit more. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. All right, so I think with that, I can probably afford to pull this out just a little bit because I am not too big fan. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that I grab the right curve, and I'm just going to pull it out. Okay, so it's still diving down, so it's not bad. I just want to make sure that this transition over here is a little bit better. I think that's better. Okay, so it's still diving down, but it's not as much. So let's do that. And what I'm going to do is, well, I guess right now the biggest concern is this piece over here. I really don't like how it's shaped. So I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit more dramatic. I think it's the depth that's causing the problem. So one thing I can do is I can try to push this in a little bit more, and hopefully that'll resolve some of this. And I think I might need to play around with the volume too. So let's go ahead and untrim this surface over here, and I'm just going to extend it. I'm going to turn merge off, and let's just check to see how the depth compares. Okay. So I'm going to grab this piece over here. I'm going to grab that one, and I need to grab this piece over here. I mean, it still looks pretty linear. I think it's looking complementary enough that I probably don't have to worry about it. But I'm still not happy with how the highlight is over here. So let's, instead of default, let's just try connect ends and see if I just hit this point over here, how that looks. Okay, so I'm just going to extend it just a little bit. Like that. Yeah, it's definitely, it needs some upgrade. So if you look at the, if you convert the section over here, you'll see that the CV structure is a little bit off. And I think that's part of the reason why it's doing this. However, I definitely think that I need to do a little bit of update on this one. That said, however, okay, so I think the dive down is pretty good. However, I might add a little bit of section over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete the construction history over here. And I'm just going to try and pull this out just a little bit so that the highlight is a little bit more concentrated. So it's a little bit more linear. Now the ends I'm going to keep as is, because if I add too much section to this, too much volume, too much crown to the center, and it's basically the highlight towards the end are not going to be good. So I'm just going to leave them as is so that they are very similar to the crown that's in the surface. So I'm just going to pull the middle ones out like this to give it a little bit more linear, to basically straighten this out. So if you notice from behind, basically before, now it's a little bit more flat, a little bit more horizontal, and I think that looks good. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I guess the only challenge or the only part that needs to be addressed is this one. So I'm going to see if I can improve that a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to freeform blend between this one and this one. Let's change this to connect ends. I'm going to push it back here. And I'm just going to see if how this intersects against this one. Right now, this is not good. So I'm going to see if I can just push it down a little bit and match the CV structure, see if that's going to help help with the section. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to do a, well, actually, let's just do a whole selection. So I'm just going to push it this way using this surface over here, or this set of CVs over here. And looks like it's not that much of a help, even though the CV structure seems to be lined up. Okay, so this is going to require a little bit of work. Actually, you know what? That's why. Okay, so I was wondering why it wasn't doing that. Okay, so this surface, I forgot to align it. So let's go ahead and trim that. Then that should help with the new surface. So I'm just going to align this one. It's G2. Okay, so that should help it. Yes, the line is going down. That's good. Okay, that's it. However, let's try to, well, let's just pick an intersection point. I'm going to just cut these two somewhere over here. I'm going to, let's go ahead and project over here, and I'm going to project using the curve. Sure, I think they might be several curved surfaces stacked on top of another. So I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to project like this, and I'm going to trim over here. Actually, let's make the curve a little bit longer. So let's make it a little bit longer like this. I'm going to project here and here. And let's take a look. Okay, well, I guess the highlight is not horrible. Yeah, let's take a look. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a freeform blend. So I'm just, for this one, I think I'm going to just copy and paste these curves and do them separately. Now, previously, the problem was there was a little bit lean towards the top. Well, so it was creating a very sharp edge, and I think that's creating a little problem for the blend. So I'm just going to lower this tangent line and lower this one as well. Okay, so what let's just go ahead and project over here, and I'm going to project this one over here. Let's go ahead and trim this one, trim that one. Looks like it needs a little bit of extension. And let's go ahead and trim again. There we go. And let's go ahead and do a freeform blend. One here, one here. Default. And it's going to be G2 on both sides. Explicit control on. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to, well, actually edge align. Yeah, because I think it's because of the angle, but I think edge align is working a lot better. So let's see if I can get a good result on this section as well. So I do have a curve here, but let's see. I'm going to just, let's just project here, and this one, I'm going to grab a curve here and project here as well. I'm going to say align. Okay, so I think this should give me a little bit better result than what I had before. I'm pretty sure it's going to have still a lot of spans, but I think it's going to be a little bit improvement. So I'm going to do a freeform blend here and here. And let's go ahead and do edge align on this one, edge align on this one. Again, still a million spans, but that's okay. I'm just trying to get a highlight feel for the highlight, and that looks much better. Okay, so as you can see, it's a diving, the highlight is diving down like this. It's got a nice horizontal highlight on the top, as you can see over here, and it's diving down with the reflection of, I'm guessing this is just a white line for the road, and it's diving down like this. So I think that looks pretty good. Now that said, however, I think there might be a little bit too much volume. So what I can do is I can try to pull these out a little bit at the bottom, and I think that should help with the section a little bit. Okay, so let's do that. So what I'm going to do, well, actually, let's before I do that, let me just save. And I'm going to try to pull the bottom one out, because the reason why it's got a lot of volume, and basically it's diving down like this is because it's got a lot of volume here, and basically I'm bending, well, basically pushing this in over here. So what I need to do is I actually need to push this one out so that it's a little bit more even. So let's see if that'll do the trick. So I'm just going to go ahead and let's grab the curve over here. I'm going to say hide unselected for now. I'm going to align this piece like this. It's going to be position. Align it over here. I'm going to turn blending on. It's going to be 1 like this. And let's go ahead and just pull it out to see how much improvement I can make. Okay, so I'm just going to pull it out like this. Actually, let's use, okay, CV, just a single CV selection. I'm going to just pull it out in Y, and I'm going to, yes, as you can see over here, it's becoming a little bit more flatter as I pull it out. Just going to do a little bit at a time. I think that's good. Okay, so let's take a look at the updated surface. Oh, I'm just going to say visible. Everything's going to update. Now, the only problem is that that's going to create some problem with all the history. So let's go ahead and trim. And for this piece over here, I think I'm going to have to redo. And so is this piece over here. So let's go ahead and do a freeform blend from here to here. Edge align, and looks like this curve, I don't know why it's, I wonder if it's this one that got, okay, you know what, let's just delete the construction history over here and realign this one onto here. Okay, so it looks like that's it. It's going to G2, blending will be turned off, and let's go ahead. Yeah, that's looking much better. So it's got a flatter section. Highlight over here still looks pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. And let's go ahead and do a freeform blend from here to here like this. And it's going to be edge align on both sides. Now I know it looks terribly messy, but at least it's giving me the highlight that I need. Oh, okay. So it looks like that also needs to be updated. Okay, so I'm just going to say untrim. And I'm going to align this one. Oh, not that one. I'm going to align this piece over here. Oh, okay. So looks like this needs to be redone as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste over here. And I'm going to grab this piece over here like this. And I'm going to untrim this one. Okay, so this is a copy and pasted piece, so I can just extend it all the way like this. And I'm just going to extend it this way. And now I'm just going to use project align with G2 from the side. Now this is all just rough. I am going to be reconfiguring all of these later. Why is it not? Okay, so I was shrink to fit. There we go. And this one can be deleted. And now let's go ahead and trim this one again. And I'm just going to do a freeform blend on the bottom to the curve like this. Default should be fine for now. I'll be doing all kinds of cleanup after this. The point of this exercise is to make sure that you got the good gesture, and well, after that's done, you can always do cleanup so that you can get this corrected. Okay, so let's take a look. Highlight looks pretty darn good, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so it's much more like how the picture is. So let's just, yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it is. I guess the only thing is right now, I think this one probably needs a little bit of improvement. I think it's a little bit flat here. So I might have to pull the CV out just a little bit over here. And let's make sure the highlight looks good over here as well. So I'm just going to align this curve onto this one. And let's go ahead and project over here using freeform blend. I'm going to align on this piece. No, that's not the piece. Let's take a look. Oh, okay, so it looks like it's a little bit short. So I'm going to say edge. So that is the piece that I need to align to. So side 1 is going to be curvature. Side 2 needs to be position. And I'm just going to do edge align here and here. Okay. Highlight looks pretty good. Okay, so I think the only thing that I need to do is make this a little bit, make this flow a little bit better. Okay, so let's go ahead. I think it might be better to modify this one over here. So let's see what I need to do. So I would assume that I probably need to pull this out. So let's go ahead and actually let's take a look at the CV structure from the top. Okay, so that's why you see that this is actually dipping down a little bit. That might be a little bit too much. So I'm just going to strike a curve right here, and I'm just going to pull the CV out just a little bit like this. So let's see if that works. So I'm going to say visible, and yes, that's, so if you, oh, let's take a look. Okay, so if I push this in, you'll see that, I mean, this is a little bit more dramatic. You'll see that there's a little bit negative, but as I push this out, you'll see that it's now giving a little bit of positive travel down to this section over here. Now, I think the effect on the bottom one is very minimal. It's still got a nice section over here, so I think I can probably just leave that as is. Although I do think that this might be a little bit too much, but I'm not sure. But overall, the section looks pretty nice. The highlight travel is pretty good. So I think I'm just going to leave the bottom one as is. Yeah, I mean, it does have a very nice, quite a lot of frown if you look at the highlight over here. So I think I'm just going to leave it as is. Actually, let's take a look at this picture. Yes, yeah, it's got quite a lot of frown, so I think I'm just going to leave it. I might even add a little bit more section to the door, but I think it's also local to the door. So if you see this highlight over here, it's got quite a lot of section, but it's also, I think it's actually separated from the rocker. So maybe I might have to separate those two. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to leave that for a little bit later. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the progress so far. I think it's looking much better. So not too bad. Okay. So I think overall, much improvement from before. I still have to do a lot of cleanup on various surfaces. So let's start with this one. So I'm going to just align a G2 over here. It's going to be edge. And let's take a look why didn't this update. Okay, so I'm going to just do a freeform blend from here to here. Okay, all the highlight looks pretty good. I still wish I can pull this out just a little bit. So I'm wondering. Yeah, to be honest, I think it's not looking too bad, but I still feel like I can pull this out just a little bit more in this section over here. So let's see. The only problem is though, I'm really happy with how things are over here. I'm wondering if it's going to ruin this one. So let's, I mean, one thing I can do is I can try to lift this up a little bit so that the transition a little smoother. But, well, let's do this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull pull both CVs out right here. Oh, what's going, okay. Let's just get rid of the CV here. I'm going to pull this one and this one out at the same time. just a little bit. And I'm going to see if I can just pull this one out. Let's see which curve it is. Okay, so it looks like it's this one. Yes, that is. And I'm just going to pull it out just a little bit to make the transition a little bit subtle. The only problem is that that is going to increase the height on this one. I mean, it still looks pretty good, but let's try to pull that out like that so that the transition here is a little bit better. Yeah, that looks a little bit better than before. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. All right, so it's still diving down. One other thing that I can do is I can, of course, not that one, but I can push this one in. Oh, maybe that's a little too much. Yeah, there we go. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. I wonder if it updated over here. I mean, this all needs to be redone. But as far as the section goes, let's take a look. We got a nice highlight over here. I mean, this needs to be updated, but the line is diving down like this. So overall, not too bad. Although I wish I could make it dive down a little bit more because I think it's got a little bit more section here. But it could also be due to, well, yeah. I think it's due to the perspective and how the ground plane, well, or the horizontal plane, whatever the image it's reflecting on the horizon might have to do with it. I think this probably is a little bit more accurate. Although, yeah. So I would say this is a pass, and let's move on. We still got tons of work to do. So I think this is probably good over here. Well, another thing that I can do is to make this a little bit more dramatic. I can try to add a little bit more crown on this side and reduce to make this a little bit flat. And that should give it a little bit more dramatic effect. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a proportional modification over here. The history should be on. So let's just delete the construction history first. And let's grab proportional modification on. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. So the last CV is, we don't touch the last CV. I'm just going to pull it, make this a little bit flat by pulling it in like this. And that should make this highlight rise a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to pull it out, go the other way like this, and you see the highlight dive down a little bit. So the reason why this happens is because it's got a more volume. Basically, it's compressing the amount of highlight or the amount of zebra stripes. So right now, well, I think it looks pretty similar. So well, it's partly due to the flat or the freeform blend. So let's do a little bit more. So I'm just going to grab this one, except for the last one, like this. I'm going to add a little more volume, and you see that the lines are diving down a little bit more. Okay, so I would probably say just leave it like that, and there we go. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Now, this also depends on how this surface is going to act. So I don't want to add too much volume, because if there's too much discrepancy between this one and this section over here, that is going to create a little problem. So let's take a look. So I'm pretty sure I've copy pasted it. Let me just make sure, because I don't want to delete the original. Okay, so that is a copy pasted one. So I'm going to say hide unselected. And I'm going to untrim this section over here. And let's go ahead and untrim this one. I'm going to extend this piece over here like this, and I'm going to extend it that way. And let's go ahead and align this again. So it's just going to be project, align. Let's do that. Not too bad. Although I think I might have added a little bit too much crown. But overall, the highlight shape is not how the highlight is flowing is not too bad. So maybe I'll just try and build it before I continue. Before I decide to change anything. So I'm just going to, well, first of all, is it trimmed? Yes, it is. Okay, I'm going to trim this piece over here. Looks like it needs a little bit of extension there. Okay. Yeah, actually that looks pretty nice. So I think I'm just going to leave it. Okay. So it's got a nice die down towards the rear. It's gotten a little bit flatter. I think that looks good. We were able to make this a little bit more subtle over here. So I think overall pretty good. All right, I think that looks good. Okay, I think we can move on to different sections of the car. Okay, so I mean, we still have tons of things to do. So I think I'm going to do a little bit cleanup in the next lesson and move on to the front, because right now we got a bunch of things like these going on. So I'll do a little bit cleanup on the next lesson. Okay, so that is it for part 10, and we will continue building in the next tutorial. And thank you guys for watching.